Okay, everyone. So I'd like to open the agenda for the Georgetown Planning Board, September 27th, 2017 meeting in Memorial Town Hall, third floor conference room. It's 5 after 7. We have minutes, vouchers, correspondence, other business, 36R64 Elm Street, lot line adjustment. We have 4 public hearings listed. Warrant article on temporary moratorium recreational marijuana, Georgetown Plaza, 6474 East Main Street, 198 East Main Street, and the Bailey Lane project. And then we have planning office at the end in talking about the open space residential development bylaw. So with that, I think what I'd just like to mention, John, correct me if I'm wrong, the Bailey Lane will be, we're going to be continuing that to October 11th?
Yes.
I just want to let anybody who might be here for that, I don't see anyone, but we're going to be continuing to October 11th, so you do not need to sit for hearing that. Okay, with that said, I'd like to go to the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of September 13th, 2017.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to approve the meeting minutes of September 13th, 2017. Any discussion? No discussion? Here, no discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4 yes, 1 absent. Vouchers, we have 2.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to, for the Eagle Tribune ad for recreational marijuana, an amount of $757.50.
Second?
Okay, motion has been made and it's been seconded to approve the voucher for Eagle Tribune in the amount of $757.50. Any discussion?
My only discussion, this comes out of our regular budget. It does?
Correct.
Okay. Is that how this works?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah.
Fine.
At least that's how it always has worked.
And that's one of 2 advertisements.
Um,
That's expensive, really. It's,
Yeah.
what paper is this?
That was-
Eagle Tribune?
Yeah.
Flies high.
Wasn't it
That's
two
2
hundred
weeks,
and
isn't it?
$27,
Isn't
wasn't
that
it?
2 weeks? Yeah, but look at the size of it,
Oh, oh.
right? Taking up a lot.
So, any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4 yes, 1 absent. We're signing that document as we speak, and the other voucher is for Merrimack Valley Planning Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the MyMap annual contract in the amount of $3,000.
Second,
Second.
motion has been made and it has been seconded to approve the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission voucher for $3,000 for FY 2018 MyMap contract. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4 yes, 1 absent. Thank you. We'll sign that and then we'll move on. So, moving on in the agenda, we move on to correspondence. There are 6 pieces of correspondence, 5 of them, Town of Rowley is for 4, 1 is to the Town of Newbury, and then the one that pertains to this board is the Massachusetts Office on Disability. There's a training program that if anyone is interested in, they need to contact John by Wednesday night. Okay. Anybody have anything they want to talk about in that correspondence?
Are you going, John, to this?
That particular one, I'm not planning to.
Mike, I think, is in charge of that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Harry, we just went over the correspondence. The only one relevant to us was the training program and the mass disability. No one notify John if you're interested in going before Wednesday.
I don't think I'll be able to make it. The only one I would have made a mention of was the Rowley,
Which one do you
the
want to talk
Rowley
about?
zoning bylaw. Just to grab a copy and maybe save yourself some typing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's gonna look like, but we're gonna be making one very soon, huh?
Yes, we are. Yeah, that's the next.
Plagiarism when you take it from another town, right?
It's probably drafted
Okay.
by the same lawyer.
Get an early draft.
Well, I think
So
the medical they
moving-
got from us.
Okay, so that takes care of minutes,
Normal.
vouchers, and correspondence. We're gonna move on to other business now. We have 36R 64 Elm Street LLR, A&R lot line adjustment plan. And, let's see here. Looking for a motion to accept the application first, and then I'll get into some discussion with John.
A motion to accept the Form A application for 36R and 64 Elm Street, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to accept the A&R plan application for 36R and 64 Elm Street. John?
Yes, in accordance with board action at the last meeting, I did have the town assessor present his comments about this plan, and that's included with the staff report. And also invited the surveyor of the plan to be here this evening, and the applicant is also here. And Ed? Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Edward Dixon. I'm a professional land surveyor. I did the work on this particular project at the beginning. And this survey was done under my supervision. We initially did a boundary of this property for them. And we attempted to do a subdivision, but because this land has quite a bit of wetlands on it, it was not really feasible for a multi-lot subdivision. We did take a serious look at that. But what we have done here is simply an equally distributed partition of land. The Jansens owned both pieces of land, actually comprised of 3 parcels. The original parcels were like here that goes down to the Pembroke School, and there's a residence here, and then there's another residence here, and the lot line went like this, all the way around out to the river in the back. This division, this lot line adjustment effectively protects the integrity of the property. The Jansens currently live in this residence. They are going to move to this residence, which they also own. And if you look at this, the backyard, where the former property line was very close in proximity to the house. By doing this adjustment of the lot line, it gives them a backyard where they don't have to have a lot line right behind their house. And this division, it's not creating any new lots. It's not altering any of the lots. And you referenced the assessor. I spent some time working through this with the assessor because he was a little confused. We had changed the configuration, in his opinion, of the abutter, the Anderson's lot up here. But that's not really the case because we did not really alter the lot lines of the Janssen's property. The determination resulted in a different appearance than it does in the GIS. And if you understand the GIS really is not the result of a determined boundary. This is the result of a determined boundary. Furthermore, the dimensions of the deed for the Anderson's lot does not have any dimensions to it, which I believe is the cause for the difference between our definition and the definition in the GIS. So I think that the assessor was appeased with how I explained it to him and how we went forward with doing this. And the few changes we made in this plan since then were just to show how we came about this determination. We showed the pipe that we held here, an iron rod that was held on line, and the dimensions are all derived from the deed. And that's the deed of Jansen's. We own a small parcel up here that goes along Elm Street. So that was essentially how we came about the determination of that line. So it effectively meets the standards for the contiguous whole parcel owned by the Jansens under no new lines description for a 250 CMR. But, so in essence, there is no change to that lot. But the change in this plan is solely the new line dividing the two parcels. And that's what we come up with calling it a lot line alteration.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that had any questions? To the board, any questions? Harry?
I'm seeing what the assessor has here, and if it's okay with him, that was my big concern. My concern was that, when I looked at it, there's a lot, number 36, it's the 10B 47 lot, and that seems to have disappeared. I saw the parcel tags, I saw them.
Turn around a little bit so you can-
I saw the parcel tags pulling it together on that line there. I didn't see the parcel tag on the other part.
You mean right here?
No, the tag, where you're eliminating the line, you had the parcel tag?
Oh, right here.
The
Yeah,
hooks,
but we
the
didn't-
parcel
we
hooks,
didn't
the
change
hooks,
any
I'm
lot
sorry,
lines
the
up
parcel
there.
hook, you have the parcel hook showing.
Right here?
No, the hook, between the old lot line,
Oh, okay, right here,
yeah, you have the hook there.
right.
But I didn't see it on the other side, where the old GIS showed it here,
Okay. Well, that's why the line was faded back.
because you're eliminating that.
Yeah, it's actually, it's
That
actually-
wasn't clear.
It's actually part of the deed. The Jansen's deed consisted of 3 parcels. One small parcel up here in the front, this large parcel, and then this piece over here.
Mhm.
Okay, and if you follow through their description, this description is a rather long-running description. It's
I
very-
can't do rod and chain, I
Yeah,
know.
it's a very long-running description. It's somewhat hard to follow. This description up here is actually a rather excellent description. It's easy to work with. And then this one here pretty much stood by itself. So the deed is, if you follow through the deed, it consists of 3 parcels, and we've held the integrity of that in our determination.
And my only concern, if I may, is that we're going from 3 to 2. And that's my only concern, but it sounds like the assessor is all set with that, with the exception of, he's looking for an area calculation for the adjoining lots to be detailed on
See,
the
I
plan.
really
I didn't
could-
see that.
I cannot do that because I didn't survey that boundary. If we had surveyed the boundary of the Andersons' lot, then I could ascertain the area, but it's not my place to call out the area on their lot. If the Andersons want to hire me or another surveyor to do that, that's their prerogative. I believe that their parcel does go like this, but as I said before, their parcel doesn't have any descriptive dimensions in it. So, frankly, I believe that they should have a survey of their lot, but that's their prerogative, how they deal with that.
Is that what he was asking? Well, before I
Yes.
jump in, I'm sorry.
So it looks like
Finish.
yeah, I mean, John, that's what, for the adjoining lots be detailed on the plan.
Want to swear?
That's what he was asking, but, you know, he wasn't working for that part.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, essentially, GIS maps are derived
Understood.
from aerial photography
Understood.
and from a plotting of deeds of record and plans and whatever. In this particular case, I imagine the people who drew that line had a real challenging time because, as I said, that deed has no dimensions and it's very difficult to work with.
Just for giggles, what's this, now if 36 is gone, number 36 is gone, and it's adjoined with 36R, does it all become 36R, or does it all become
Assessors-
36?
That's an assessor's call, I believe, how
Okay.
they want
For
to,
all
because.
the years we've owned it, we've paid 2 taxes, one on 36 and one on 36R.
Absolutely.
So that's probably
I
the way it'll
just-
stay, I imagine.
Just for your, you have my endorsement at this point, I'm just curious as to how.
Yeah, that's an
that gets
assessor's, I mean, it's a nomenclature and how you wanna label it, but, the actual determination of the boundary, the way the lines are drawn is based upon the old deed.
Yeah, I was just curious as to what the assessor was gonna call it, as a mailing address.
Did you have any other specific questions?
So it has my endorsement, I'm good.
Anyone else? Tilly, any questions?
So, I just wanna go be sure I understand. This is the new line.
Correct.
The line
Okay.
going alongside the dirt road, the gravel road.
All right, so that's the new line. So when we approve this, we don't address the zoning issue.
The zoning issue, the zoning officer for the town of Georgetown inspected this and gave it his approval. we went to him initially to get his approval, and it's because we knew we were dealing with a pre-existing non-conforming lot.
Sure. Yeah, well, this house here on 38 Elm Street, I didn't measure it, but it looks like that is very close to that line. And that does not meet zoning.
We didn't touch the lot 38, that's this lot right here.
Yeah, but you're saying this is all a new line, right?
No, it's not
No,
in their
just-
property.
Just, can you,
Just that
can
right
you,
where your finger is?
Just from their
that's the
lot
beginning.
going down.
Oh, okay.
from here to here is new.
Oh, all right.
This is existing and they didn't touch it.
Okay, now I can understand what he said.
Anything else?
That's about it.
Matt, you all set?
Oh, well, what's that?
They've addressed the questions I had. You all set with it, John?
I am.
Okay.
The only thing is I'll get Form B when we take a break, and the board can endorse that. That's cited in the motion itself.
Okay, so,
Mr. Chairman, may I make a
looking
motion?
to hear a motion.
I move to approve the, my apologies, Mr. Chairman, I'm not getting the applicant's surveyor setting boundary markers? I've never seen that before in an
Excuse me?
A&R. The second of the draft motion?
Yeah, you know, it's probably new as a condition, but do you have any, you haven't seen that, have you?
No, I have not.
No. Can I read this, Mr. Chairman?
Please,
Yeah.
absolutely.
One of the conditions of approval is that prior to planning board endorsement of the plan, boundary markers shall be set by the applicant's surveyor. You have a problem doing that? Yeah, it's a standard practice. You know, why would you bother doing a survey and paying all that money unless you were going to actually establish the corners and points of tangent, everything else? Otherwise, you don't know where they are.
Absolutely, and I fully encourage any landowner that goes to the expense and the trouble of having a survey to have permanent boundary markers put in, but I don't feel comfortable conditioning a Form A. I don't feel
Yeah, I
comfortable
mean,
conditioning.
a lot of times.
I'll make a motion to endorse the Form A lot line adjustment plan of land, prepared for Paul and Mary Jansen by DGT Survey Group, dated
I think,
September 7th, 2017, but again, that's the motion I'll make, and that's how it will stand, because my understanding was you cannot condition a Form A.
I think he's right, but, because we're not clear about it, I think what we should do I think Harry's correct, but I think what we should do on this is not include just endorse the plan, but put it on that list of things to verify.
Yeah.
So that the next time, if it is something we can do, it makes sense and we should do it.
I think it's something you
So-
should tell the applicant. Mrs. Jensen sitting there.
I'm a little confused, I mean,
Yeah,
I
she's
can
confused.
understand marking it, but does that mean permanent, I mean?
No, what we're saying as
Stone
a board right now on this project is nothing, you're not gonna be asked to do any marking. So it's a moot issue. What came up was a potential motion, which was to mark the new property line with,
Can I interject here? I think it's right and warranted. I actually encourage that. I would encourage you
Sure.
to do that, if only because it allows for the retracement of the property by future surveyors.
yeah,
But
but I think to Harry's point, I don't think we have that authority.
I also agree with Harry, and I think what you really need, because I do not believe that's in your regulations for an approval not required subdivision plan, under the subdivision rules and regulations of the town of Georgetown.
It's not.
Correct, so that's why we're gonna have John look into that, so the next time
No,
we'll
but
know for
I'm just
sure.
giving you my 2 cents. As a professional land surveyor, I think it's a good idea. I think
agree.
I think it's important.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that you're the only one that has not done it, as far as I've been there. Most property owners want it there, because it's very expensive to have this fellow,
Yeah,
and you don't know what's gonna come down the line,
that's correct.
So this, now would be the time, I would say.
I mean, you would admit that it's standard practice.
It's not, well, no, it's a good practice. It's not a standard practice because I do a lot of subdivisions in a lot of towns, and very few towns have a requirement to monument all the subdivisions, all the lot line changes and whatever. It's just the way the rules are. But I think it's a good idea, actually.
Not to be argumentative, but all the experience I've had is that.
New Hampshire is different. New Hampshire is a different state, and they do it that way. And we could have a discussion on New Hampshire, because I think their rules are to a certain degree better in New Hampshire in regards to surveying of land. But I think I would endorse you if the town put that in the regs. But I don't think it should apply. I agree with Harry. I don't think it should apply to this plan.
Okay,
Second your
so,
motion.
no more discussion, if we can get a motion?
He made a motion, I second. Yep.
Did you read the whole motion?
I made a
Everything but number
motion,
two?
Mr. Chairman, and
Okay.
the motion essentially was
I
to,
wasn't sure that was,
to approve this plan
yep,
as stands with no conditions,
yep.
to endorse.
So the
to
motion-
endorse this plan.
Has been made and been seconded to approve the A&R LLA plan entitled Lot Line Adjustment Plan of Land, Georgetown, Mass, Essex County, prepared by DGT Survey Group, North Shore, 18 Center Street, dated September 7th, 2017, consisting of sheet 1 of 1 and notes 1 of 3. That was the motion?
With the slight change that it's not accepted, it's endorse. The motion was to endorse, not to accept, to endorse.
What did I say?
I think you meant to say it, but, that's what you meant to say, but.
I'm glad he got caught this time. I'm
Oh,
usually
moved
the
to
one that does
endorse.
Yeah,
that.
it's so easy.
And
Okay.
Harry, you're always on the ball.
Okay, so with that correction of endorsement, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
You made the second.
I did. I'd just like to mention for these in the future, that just makes life so much easier when the applicant comes. The difference between this and last week was, our last meeting was night and day, so thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And I know it's not in our
Thank you for
regs or
coming.
anything, but I know it's not in our regs or anything.
That's 20 days, I guess, correct. Thank you.
And I know it's not.
You really should not have even gone into it. I wish I didn't, but the last time.
Oh,
Well, sometimes
You know
we
what?
have to get it out that,
It's really cool that it goes by the assessor. Just a copy falls on his desk. It's really cool when that happens.
right.
okay, so we have public hearing. First one is the proposed warrant article. Read the notice of the public hearing. In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Georgetown Planning Board will hold a public hearing on September 27th, 2017, at 7:15 PM in the third floor meeting room, Georgetown Town Hall, 1 Library Street, Georgetown, Mass, to consider the following proposed amendments to Chapter 165 zoning bylaws of the town of Georgetown. Proposed warrant article language, associated zoning bylaw amendments calling for a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments. Looking for a motion to open the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
make a motion to open the public hearing for the zoning amendments surrounding temporary moratorium for recreational marijuana establishments.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made, it's been seconded to open the public hearing for the proposed warrant article language and associated zoning bylaw amendments calling for a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4 yes, 1 absent. Okay, I guess, John, you wanna start off and then we'll take it to the public and then we'll bring it back to the board.
Yes, as stated in the staff report, this was run by town council, Attorney Eichman, and he reviewed the entire content of the public hearing notice and sanctioned it being published as written. And as stated in the motion, the action of the board, once the public hearing is closed, is to move this to the Board of Selectmen and recommend that it be included. And it's technically the FY18 Fall Special Town Meeting warrant. So, the action needed tonight by the planning board is contained in that motion. I went over that with Mike Farrell and actually the town clerk too.
So before I go to the public, I wasn't sure how to handle this, and so I wanted to ask the board how to handle this. This is long, and I don't want to read it into the record for people who might be at home. But I didn't know how the board thought in terms of either just referencing this document, which is, you know, with the office of the town clerk and the planning office, if anybody's looking for copies of it, but.
It's published on the town's website in its entirety.
So
In
I'm
that
not,
light, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to waive the reading.
okay.
Second.
Motion has been made to waive the reading, and it has been seconded. Any discussion?
I do have a question on the first, the third line, the purpose.
Well, this is just a motion to waive the reading of it, then we can come back to
All right.
actually get specific
Well,
about it.
I don't know how I'm gonna discuss it without reading
Oh,
that.
no, this is just to waive the reading of this whole thing.
Oh,
to
all
the
right.
camera. Then we're gonna come back and then we can talk about anything we want to on this.
Okay, sure.
So, no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4 yes, 1 abstain. Okay, so, is there anyone first from the public who wants to ask any questions? I don't think that's gonna happen right now. So, comments bringing it back to the board. Tilly?
The third line there, for purpose, the regulation, 94G, regulation of the use and distribution of marijuana, not medically prescribed? This is medically prescribed.
No.
The
But
not you should take out, I
No,
think.
this is,
No, this is recreational.
this is recreational.
This is all pot that's not medically prescribed.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right.
We've already done the medical
Alright.
marijuana.
I think recreation should be there instead of not medically.
I mean, that's a legal term,
Oh.
that's coming straight from what the law provides for. So it's segregating out of any intention of this law.
Yeah.
Medical marijuana, which is its own category, so
Okay,
the other stuff is recreational.
hmm,
Might have medicinal effects, but it's for recreational purposes.
mm-hmm. That was my only question.
Anyone?
May I? John, you said you got this from KMP. They're going with marijuana, not cannabis, when they call it, right? Okay, that's cool.
If Rob was here, he'd be having a problem with that, but
Yeah.
I think they're starting to recognize the issue too, because it's the Cannabis Commission that's being
Cannabis Control
commissioned.
Commission, yeah.
So
Board, yeah.
they're getting more and more into the Latin.
See what happens when the regs come out.
Yeah.
The only other question I have is, with respect to the definition and, the amendment on, 165.7, definitions. On that definition, recreational marijuana establishment, a marijuana cultivator, independent testing facility. Independent is underlined. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, when I got this back from Attorney Eichmann, that was one of the things he wanted to emphasize in the final printing of this. Independent, that's,
Independent as opposed to dependent?
no, well, it's an independent testing facility, meaning that it's one party ownership and it's separate from anyone else. It's an independent testing facility.
So the company can't test it, it's gotta go from outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying their best to cross all the Ts and dot all the Is on this thing.
They put a lot of time in on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
So I have just two quick comments.
Well, I
Oh,
did,
sorry.
just my last one
Oh,
is, at the end of that, independent testing facility, marijuana product manufacturer, marijuana retailer, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related business. That almost seems to include medicinal marijuana, because medicinal marijuana is a licensed marijuana-related business. And that's given me a little discomfort, because, well, now we're saying that recreational is medical. And we're eliminating medical? I'm not following that.
Well, I guess when we do the new zoning bylaw, it'll be more defined, so that there's no,
No, this is a definition being put into our zoning bylaw, Tilly. This is 165.7. This is the zoning bylaws definition section. We're amending it by adding this definition. We're doing three things here in this. That's the second one. Stating a purpose in 165.69-2. We're amending chapter 165-7, which is definitions, by adding this definition. And then we're adding the moratorium in another section.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, one of the things to take into consideration, and we have a perfect example here in town, Healthy Farms. You know, they're going to be first in line, in all likelihood, to be the first retail establishment to sell marijuana. And that's why that's in there. Medical marijuana facilities under this proposed law are not going to be prohibited. They're actually going to be first in line to be able to sell recreational marijuana on the retail market. So,
But I think, Harry, your point is that technically by this definition, our moratorium would apply to Healthy Farms.
for
It sounds like it.
recreational
Well,
sale.
No, any
Not if you-
other
no,
type.
not
Any-
according to
but
this definition.
Yeah, but the other thing, this is only temporary. This,
Okay, so-
this set of zoning amendments is only temporary, and that time frame is included in
They're
here.
gonna close until June? I think they wanna keep going.
Well, no, the moratorium shall be in effect through June 30th, 2018, or until such time as the town adopts zoning bylaw amendments that regulate recreational marijuana establishments.
Okay,
Right.
so May 1st, they wanna shut down till May 1st?
No, all of that is still yet to be decided.
Well, that's what we're saying. I didn't write it.
No. I'm sure,
I
you
didn't
know,
get to
like
comment on
most
it.
laws, and this is really complicated. Much more
Absolutely.
complicated than the referendum question asked and the establishment of the law. Or,
Sure.
you know,
Where do
you
you see
can't,
the
you
where
can't
do you see
cross
the
every
regs?
T and dot every I. There's, you know, go
Right,
on
but
forever.
you can write it in such a way that it's not
Wrong.
explicitly wrong, and
Do
right
we-
now it's explicitly wrong.
Do we have, are we on a schedule with this, John, that it has to be?
Yeah, you know what,
Do tonight?
you know, that's such a minor change. If this board wants to move to strike that language, so be it.
Or just, but explicitly excluding medical marijuana as defined by previous chapter.
well, right now, the amendments have to come on the floor. We've advertised, we've started this, so,
The warrant hasn't been printed.
Right.
This is a public notice.
This is the first one, too.
Yeah. The warrant has not been printed.
Right.
and where do you see May? I'm looking all over this thing.
What do you mean? Oh, June 30th, so it wouldn't be May.
It's June 30th.
John, just,
June
again,
30th is-
do we,
but-
do
but
we
they
have to,
have
are we
until
on a
June
schedule
1st.
where we have to
I
pass
believe May
this
1st is
tonight
gonna be
in order to
the
meet some other
2018
schedule?
springtime.
I'm honestly, I'm not sure, but you could make any language that you want to extract from this publication that's not going to substantially alter its meaning, you can do here tonight.
I guess what I'm struggling with, and I hear what they're saying, is that I wish John were here to be able to, you know, answer directly their questions. I'm just not comfortable with something that is so convoluted
Could I,
to start making changes for fear of
could I,
messing up something that we're not picking up that he was thinking.
yeah, could I just, add, I propose to add, where it says marijuana retailer or any other type of licensed And after the word licensed, I would say non-medical marijuana-related business. Just to clarify.
Right.
Just to specifically clarify that that's
Yeah,
not what we're intending.
right,
The
and,
addition of two words, I think, well,
yeah.
I think if John saw it, well, I don't know what he'd say. Not gonna
Yeah,
read
so
his
you,
mind.
you could, so just
Yeah.
for instance, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related business not medically prescribed.
Well, I just put it right after license, I put non-medical marijuana-related business,
Okay.
right? And I mean, that would specifically,
Licensed, comma, non-medical.
yep, okay.
Non-medical. That clarifies it.
You know more.
Comma doesn't change it, it just,
Both non.
Matt, what do you think?
I'm just curious why the town of Raleigh was able to put together a zoning amendment and not put it in this moratorium, and we're not even attempting to do that. That's point number one. Point number two, recreational marijuana passed the state 55-45, and we're putting up roadblocks. Those are my 2 points.
May I,
Please.
Mr. Chairman?
Did you read the Rowley?
I haven't. No.
So if you read it, you would see that it's similar to what we have on the books now. Very similar.
It's a moratorium, or it's
No, it's just,
zoning?
it's already a bylaw, just like we have already for medical.
Right, but
Very similar.
they'll be able to accept recreational marijuana facilities before we will, as a result of that zoning bylaw,
Well,
correct?
number one, they can't accept them until the state allows it, which is 2018, right?
April 1st,
April 1st of 2018, right?
exactly.
Okay. So that's a change. It was, I think, June or July.
A lot of stuff changed, and
Yeah, but
it
that's not,
changes the
that's not a
reason.
certainty, though. That date is not a certainty. That's something that's
Yeah,
a possibility.
yeah.
It's not a certainty yet.
It's supposed to be on or before, is my
There's-
understanding.
that's-
On or before,
That's what I heard. There's a lot of,
on or before.
There's a lot of uncertainty because the
Uncertainty.
legislature in their infinite wisdom thinks they know more than the people of Massachusetts. And,
I think we should go with this because right now, and then if there's any changes, we could always amend it on the floor.
Look there, you wanna,
That's how I feel. I mean, there's gonna be more changes, I mean, from the state.
I don't s-
well, let's just try to bring this back to what we have in front of us right now, which is Harry has suggested adding non-medical after the word licensed. How do you,
I'll make
how
that
do
as a
you all
motion,
feel?
Mr.
Before-
Chairman, I
Before
make
you
a-
make the motion, please.
Oh, sorry.
Just in general, how do you all feel about that? Matt?
I'm not voting for it anyway.
But that aside,
I agree with him on the language.
legally,
Yes.
okay.
I
Tilly,
think the language would.
you're okay?
I'm satisfied with the.
So on the language issue, John, do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so,
Good eye.
let's focus on that right now and make that motion to make that change.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to amend this draft to add the words non-medical after the word licensed and before the word marijuana in the definition section to amend 165-7.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to add the word non-medical after the words non-medical after the word licensed and before the word marijuana in section 165-7 definitions and word usage. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So 4 yes, 1 absent. And then, looking for a motion in general to move this bugger along.
Yeah, and that's on the.
Mr. Chairman, I move to forward to the Board of Selectmen the 3 attached zoning amendments which call for the establishment of a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments in the town of Georgetown, and for 7 amendments to be included with the addition, with the amendment, with our addition as an article in FY18 fall special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion has been made and it has been seconded to forward to the Board of Selectmen the 3 attached zoning amendments, including the addition, as previously noted, of non-medical to section 165-7, and which call for the establishment of a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishment in the town of Georgetown, and for said amendments to be included as an article in the FY18 fall special town meeting warrant. Any discussion? I have discussion. I just wanna piggyback on, I agree with Matt wholeheartedly, with what he said in terms of what the state passed overwhelming. And I'm going to support this only because of this word I see, and I want this to go into the record. This is important to me, a temporary moratorium, and it's the word temporary. And it's with that faith that, the whatever changes come after are going to be consistent with the state of Massachusetts and the voters. That's my comment. Anyone else have any?
I'll echo that, Mr. Chairman, and, you know, anybody that thinks that this is some kind of a ban in this town, or, well, my only reason that I would like to see a moratorium is to give us time before the Springtown meeting to actually see the regulations that are promulgated by the Cannabis Control Commission.
Yeah.
Because those regulations are gonna have to be reflected, those definitions are gonna be cloned into our bylaw. And I fully
But
support
it-
the idea of Rowley creating a bylaw now, and that's all well and good, but I suspect they're gonna pass that bylaw, and then they're gonna be back at the next town meeting revising it to make it match up with the regs, and
I understand, I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting it wouldn't be frustrating and difficult, but I
Absolutely.
will also mention that, I was here for some of the, some of the comments on medical marijuana, and there was many of the same arguments, and I was here on, when people were fighting, and had, you know, concerns about medical marijuana coming to Georgetown, and I know from my experience that Healthy Farms is a great member of this community, and we have the opportunity to be a community that could welcome these types of jobs to Georgetown, and we could be on the ground floor, and we could be one of the first communities ready for that. But we've decided to take a different track and slow that progress down, and I think that that's gonna have, we're gonna miss some opportunities that we might not otherwise miss.
Any other discussion?
Well,
Thank you,
I
Matt.
would like to follow up on Matt's comment, and, from what I gather, there's only been 2 applications based on the selectmen's meeting, if I recall, 3 or 4 large cities that only have had 2. And Georgetown is a small community, having 2 interested people, is amazing. Does Georgetown wanna be known as the marijuana hub? You know, it's something that may change. I mean, for many years before your time, probably, Georgetown was noted for the drive-in movie. Now we're gonna be, and that's critical, because we wanna develop the industrial area, you know?
I think if you would look at the communities in California, Colorado, that got in early and took advantage of the laws early, the results for that town has not been negative whatsoever. I think it's been quite the opposite, and they've been doing very, very well for their decisions to be one of the first communities to adopt these types of regulations. But
And how many applications do they have?
well, this is talking about different states. I don't know about applications, but you know, that have growers and sellers in these communities, and have done very, very well from tax revenues as a
Right.
result of it.
absolutely, yeah, I
So
think we're
after-
gonna be positioned very well anyway.
Okay, so
So everybody has.
Regs come out in April, we'll be passing the bylaw in May.
So everybody has expressed themselves, I appreciate that. So seeing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
3 yes, 1 no, 1 absent. Okay. Moving on to public hearing number 2, Georgetown Plaza, 6474 East Main Street. Looking for a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I move to reopen the public hearing for the Georgetown Plaza site review, plan review application.
Second? Second from somebody?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second open.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to reopen the public hearing for the Georgetown Plaza site plan review application. Looks like we have the full team here tonight. And what we'll do is we'll go to you folks for how you want to handle tonight's meeting. But before we do that, I just want John to just sort of give the board an overview.
Yeah, as I stated in the staff report, Concom did actually approve this project at their last Concom meeting, which was last Thursday. As I pointed out, I did talk to the applicant's representative prior to tonight's meeting, and what they'd like to do is have the opportunity before this board tonight to go over the proceedings that took place in the amending action that took place with the Concom, relative to what we have previously as a planning board looked at, and then prescribe a future review process for this with the planning board, so that we can actually move forward with this application also.
So this isn't, just to be clear, this isn't a submittal of any drawings at this point. This is just to hear them give us a presentation, an update of what happened with Conservation Commission. It's like an FYI, so with that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, quick question. Are we still in, we are still in site plan review though, right? We're in open
Public
hearing,
hearing,
right?
yes.
Public hearing.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Just quickly, for the record, John Smolak, attorney for the applicant, Chris Sparagus, Williamson Sparagus, our project engineer, and Jim Clifford, real estate manager for NPG Management, for the principal, for the owners. Just as John had indicated, we're here to, we're not looking for any action this evening. We're simply here to update the board on what has transpired since the last time we were before the board, which was back in, I think, March 22nd. And since that time, we've been before the commission, and what we're hoping, you know, I don't want to be presumptuous, but what we're hoping to do is to satisfy the board at the next meeting, so that perhaps some action could be taken, simply because this application was filed in July of 2016, and we've had this project extensively reviewed. Peer review has already gone through, both through the planning board and the Conservation Commission, the plans. But just with that said, I'd like to at least just simply run through some of the changes we've made since our last meeting.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, do we have plans, the revised
No,
plans?
no, that's what I said.
Oh, we don't have the
They're
plans
not
yet.
submitting
They haven't been
anything.
made?
This is just an FYI update. They're just gonna present to us. They're not submitting any plans for us.
And Mr. Chairman, it'll be very quick, just to bring you up to speed. Again, for the record, Chris Sparagus from the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Sparagus, and as John mentioned, we were last before the planning board back in March, on March 22nd. And at that time, we had completed our peer review process with BSC Group. You might remember Dominic Rinaldi from BSC Group, the professional engineer from their office that had peer reviewed our stormwater management plan and the site plan components. We decided to take a break because we had recently also submitted our notice of intent to the Conservation Commission, and it took a while to start the hearing process. The Conservation Commission decided to also hire BSC Group's senior wetland scientist, Jillian Davies, to review the project in the context of the town's wetland bylaw and regulations, and to make sure that it complied with the performance standards for working in a riverfront area in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act and its regulations. And during that process, there were 3 or 4 public hearings. There was a site visit, and 2 or 3 back and forths between BSC Group and Greg Hockmuth, our wetland scientist in our office. And I'm just gonna cover the plan changes that are most significant. We eliminated 4 parking spaces from the proposal in an area that was not previously part of the disturbed riverfront area that consisted of the compacted gravel driveway. And if you recall, we had 4 additional parking spaces roughly here, and those were eliminated to allow for additional vegetated surface. So we're down from 28 parking spaces to 24 parking spaces proposed. As a result of eliminating those parking spaces, we also increased the number of plantings. Specifically, there were several additional river birch tree plantings, a couple of additional red maple plantings, and 15 additional sweet pepper bush plantings spread throughout the riverfront area as part of trying to better vegetate and improve the riverfront area, which extends quite far into the project. Just to refresh your memory, the riverfront area is a 200-foot offset from the bank of Penn Brook, and that itself is a resource area under both the local and the state regulations. And so it's been a challenge to sort of balance the regulations and the improvements. We also, after having, and I'll continue with the Concom stuff first, and then I'll move on to the fire department. There were some minor revisions to the erosion and sediment control plan. We were asked to create an invasive species management plan that was submitted and reviewed and approved by the Conservation Commission's peer review consultant, and that'll be something that will be in place as we head into the future to control invasive species that are growing within the riverfront area. After the 4 parking spaces were removed, Steve Przemski, the Concom's agent, also suggested that it might be a good idea now that those 4 parking spaces had been removed. This opened up some additional snow storage for us, and he thought that it might be a good idea to create sort of an additional small depressed area that was just a little bit more of it offers a little bit more pre-treatment before stormwater, let's say in this area, maybe as a result of snow storage, worked its way into our treatment swale, just something a little bit extra. We didn't call it anything other than a vegetated depression. That's an area where we had also proposed some additional plantings. I know I don't have the previous plan with us to compare, but the additional plantings were sprinkled throughout with an emphasis in this area and in a couple of other landscape spots. So that, other than that, there were some plan changes that the peer review consultant asked us to do, and let me give you a couple of examples. They wanted us to specifically outline the protective zones that are specifically outlined in the town's wetlands bylaws, buffer zones, inner 100 riparian zone, which is 100 feet from the river. They wanted us to also show the limit of the floodplain on all of the sheets. It was just a little bit of belt and suspenders to make it consistent, even though we're not proposing any work within the floodplain. It was a few things like that, and we're going to summarize that in writing when we submit the revised plan set to you. After our meeting back on the 22nd of March, I also met with fire department officials to review the plan, turning movements around the building. They were happy with those. They asked us to add some fire lane signs in the rear portion of the property, along the outer parts here, to make sure that people didn't park, potentially block that driveway access. And then they also identified where we had a dumpster proposed initially at that location. And they reminded us that the fire regulations prohibit having a dumpster, a freestanding dumpster, within 10 feet of a building. And so they asked us to try to come up with another location for that dumpster. And so that's a change.
Can you repeat that requirement or request?
Sure,
Which was it?
Sure, it was a requirement under the fire protection regulations, and I can give you the citation when we,
Okay, no, I'm sure it is.
yeah,
was
I
just-
looked it up after I left.
I would have too.
And I found it and, shared it with the team.
Okay.
We tossed around a couple of ideas about alternative locations, but this is the dumpster that primarily serves Dunkin' Donuts, and so it's kind of an important one. And so we eliminated the impervious surface here and just turned it back to grass. We didn't add another parking space or anything like that, and instead proposed to create a pad at this location here. So that's a change that we're showing on the plan, and we show it to the Conservation Commission. This is the first time we're presenting it to you. It's in front of the building. It's not our first choice, but we've discussed it with the owner, and they have a couple of different options for enclosures. There's a more expensive option, and one that's not so expensive when it's sort of out in the open. There's an alternative sort of enclosure that they like to use at their other locations, and this is going to be one of them. So I did not receive a final sign-off from the fire department, so I need to circle around with them one more time with the changes and make sure that they're on board. I'm going to show them signage that we proposed and the fact that we've moved the dumpster. So I expect that what I did ask the chief and the fire safety officer after we submitted the revised plans to him, if it was okay to communicate by email, and he said he would do so. Other than that, I wanted to point out that at that last meeting on the 22nd, Mr. Chair, you had given us a copy of a memo that you had prepared with a laundry list of items. And we're going to make sure that, because so much time has passed, I can't remember exactly how many of them were added to the plan. I'm going to go through all of my notes. This is hearing number 5. So I've taken detailed meeting minutes from each of the meetings. I'm going to sift through and just make sure that we've covered everything in your memo, and any of the other comments that any of the other members have made, and we'll put it in a short summary letter and submit the revised plans to you a week before. Our plan is a week before your next available meeting.
Just to that point very quickly, so you submitted a week before, that gives us time to review it. John, is our technical review agent gonna need to get involved again?
We'll give them the revised plans and see if they can have a decent turnaround.
So all I'm saying is just, you had mentioned about wanting to come back for a decision at the next meeting and to be determined.
Sure.
So anyways.
Just to add to that, Jillian Davies, who is the wetland science, the senior wetland scientist at BSC Group, each of her comment letters in our information was copied to Dominic Rinaldi. They work together in the same office.
Oh.
So he was sort of part of the list. So I could reach out to him if that would be helpful.
I would like to see the hair letter.
I'd like to see that report myself.
A final letter from Mr. Rinaldi.
The report from
I'd like to see
Cheryl.
the review.
Right.
Jillian, right?
So we can certainly give you copies of those. I know that the Concom voted to close the public hearing, as Mr. Cashel said last Thursday, so there'll be, I imagine that an order of conditions will be forthcoming.
Great.
So just so I'm clear, so you guys want the Conservation Commission, that letter that she's talking about?
I'm looking for the Jillian Davies report would probably be very helpful.
The Conservation Commission letter that she wrote.
Right.
She did a review, didn't she?
She did. There were
Conservation.
2 or 3 back and forths.
That would,
So can you provide that?
That would help a lot,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Okay.
and just renderings of possible enclosures for the.
Okay, before you jump right in, Harry.
Well, it sounds like we're on an accelerated course here.
And there was
Well,
one other item I wanted to
I
touch upon.
want to
but-
finish with him, please.
Yep. The only other item I wanted to bring up, because it's been a pain in my backside for a while, is that the grass growth on top of the septic system. Back in July, we had Greg Hockman, our wetland scientist. I had him go out there. We actually took core samples in various locations to see what was going on, why we were getting, so the topsoil was good. And the problem, and one of the things we found out was it's at least 9 to 10 inches thick, but it was very compact. And it took them a while to dig through, to do those core samples. And so we put our heads together, and his recommendation was to have it rototilled to break it up, because the topsoil looked like it was decent material in terms of organic content. And so they did that, and they reseeded it, and they've been staying on top of it, so it's doing much better.
Looks like it looks much better.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's the end of my quick summary, and if there are any
Okay.
comments in the meantime, that's what we're here for.
Right, so now I'd like to, there's no one in the audience, now I'd like to go to the board. Tilly, do you wanna start?
So you're still doing the porous in the back? Is that,
That has not changed, that's correct.
that hasn't changed? So we would need a maintenance, some kind of a maintenance plan for that.
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah,
learned that one, didn't we?
Right.
The hard way.
Absolutely, we went into that in quite a bit of a depth with Mr. Rinaldi, if you remember, as we headed towards the final, the hearing back and forth with him.
I was
think-
referring to something
I
else.
think, just on that point, so we don't lose it, cause it is very important. It's going to, I think, the board is gonna be looking for some real teeth on the drawing in terms of, I don't care how you word it, but this system will be working 30 years from now. Because all the maintenance plans in the world don't mean anything if they're not enforced, but you come back with, I just took 30 out of my hip pocket. You come back with a reasonable amount of time that you think the system that this is all being based on should be in place, should last. And then we're gonna look for, I'm gonna be looking for teeth on the drawings and words that commit to that.
Okay.
Because it's now becoming an issue where so many projects are using this as a way to deal with stormwater, and then 10 years down the road, the system isn't working, or the property gets resold and it's not working, and it's just wreaking havoc. So,
Do
And
you
I'll be
think we
walking
should
back there
consider a
with a water
surety
bottle.
for that? For the porous payment, should we request a surety bond for it?
well, maybe we can question that when we get the new drawings and.
The dumpster, I don't like that place. You gotta come up with something better than that, even if it's further walking from the door. I can see why it's easily accessible to the door, but that's,
And for vehicles, you can
that's
see how-
terrible. That's terrible. I don't like that at all.
Is, if I may, is that regulation 10 feet from the structure? Is that what it is?
Have you done the public hearing?
What's that?
Have you done the public hearing?
On the medical, yes,
Oh,
did it, done.
okay. I was out of my meeting, sorry.
Sorry. Harry, what's your question?
Yeah, I'm looking at it and I get it, can't be 10 feet, has to be 10 feet from the building unless you're, I don't see a spot, you're pretty much jammed in the back there unless you wanna shut down your aisle there for travel. You're pretty much gonna be there, and, at least it gets it outside the 100 anyway, and, I'd like to see renderings on,
Sure.
the various types of enclosures that you're gonna use to screen it from view of the public. And
We can get you some actual photographs of one that's in place, if that would be helpful.
Sure, absolutely.
I would think it would be on the other side, on the way out.
You get the septic there.
But he's also got space there for excess. The driveway is over there.
I don't see it, Tilly.
Yeah. I would put it on the other side. I think that's terrible there. That's a hazard. That's not gonna,
That area there is raised, isn't it?
it's
Isn't that
not
the raised-
attractive. I mean, you're going in for food and you're gonna look at the dumpster. I mean, it
There-
just doesn't click with me.
And I bet it doesn't click with them either.
No.
So I'm guessing they're gonna do everything in their power to make that as attractive as possible, because their clients have to go walking past that. I don't think, Tilly, there's room to push it over to the left, but I hear your point, which is you're not happy with where it's located. So
Yeah, the dilemma that we have is, we have an existing building that's been there for years and years, and the site is so tight that we're merely trying to create parking so that we could have the rest of the building occupied.
And not that they're not gonna maintain the ones in the back, but I have a funny feeling that this one will be maintained maybe just a little bit better than the ones out back.
I bet
Well,
you're
now
right.
you're gonna have domino
So
garbage.
let's-
You're adding to the garbage, it's not just
So
dumping.
so we're not gonna resolve this as an issue
We'll leave it
tonight?
up tomorrow.
I think, if you can find another spot, be prepared to be asked that question again.
And the other thing is that I really want more explanation on this depositing area for snow. I just find that amazing that, you know, I'd like to be comfortable with Concom's explanation for that. I haven't seen that before. They try to avoid putting snow piles near a wet area, and this is a river.
Right.
I'd appreciate that.
I know a lot of time has passed, Mr. Chair. I'd like to stick my neck out there and say that we were really close to closing the public hearing back in March. So I know maybe it's hard to remember that, but that's the way I remember it. After four public
That was ancient
hearings.
history, it was so long ago.
Everybody thinks
Playing with
that.
our memories.
As
They
much,
always think that,
as
well,
much as we love to be here, and you do too, isn't it,
That's the most diplomatic way I've ever heard anyone put that. That's very nice.
Only because we had gotten to the end of the peer review process. I know it's been a while. It's been a while.
It
I
has been a
understand.
while, and I appreciate that.
But we'll make sure to go through and address any additional questions you
Which is
have.
one of the reasons I keep pushing for us to change our requirement that the applicant go to conservation first and then come to us, so we don't have all these continuations. Or the other thing I would like to suggest is that we pay for continuations when they're not the board's fault. If we're here and you're not ready, we're gonna close it for lack of information. And the lack of information is the conservation board. I mean, you know, I think the town has been very flexible. I don't think they do that in Andover.
Mr. Chairman?
Were there any other, Tilly, did you have any other site plan comments?
That was about it, I
Yeah.
think,
Okay. Matt?
I know I've addressed this before, and I know there's probably not much that can ever be done about this, but I am just still scared to death. Everybody parks here, and they want to walk around to go into work in the morning, or parks over there, and they wanna walk around to go into work in the morning. Somebody comes up with this too fast, there's no visibility here, and somebody's gonna get clipped. I'm just,
that's a good point.
very, very nervous about that. The ones in the back, I'm not so worried about, cause I understand that there's a entryway through the building. But, the 7 or 8 spots there, I know this section right here, there's no visibility from this spot to this spot, going forward, and somebody comes around the corner too fast, there's gonna be some trouble.
Well, all that parking in back is employees anyway, right?
Correct, but, so even worse, you know, somebody comes into work at 5 o'clock at Dunkin' Donuts, 5 o'clock in the morning when it's dark.
Right,
They're walking up to go into go into work in the morning. People speed because it's early.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
To that point that Matt has raised, and I think was there any way of fitting in a sidewalk with a vertical separation between that and the road?
Right, so for the Dunkin' Donuts, those 4 parking spaces that are there essentially are intended for the employees at Dunk's. And there's a door and a walkway in the back of the building here.
Sure,
Right here.
and so that means that people won't come around here, great.
Right.
But from here to here, they're gonna walk behind the cars, most likely, right, particularly in the winter, cause the snow's gonna be here. So they're gonna come up through here where there's no sidewalk. People are coming around, going around that way. I'm just, you know, I'm concerned about those spots, and then particularly over on this other side too. I don't know if there are, you know, the mirrors that could be put up there, speed bumps, anything to keep that.
Right,
that
so this will
that
be
is-
the only side that we're gonna be really, if there was a concern, it would be this side, because it is, it's just one-way circulation. So we won't worry about folks driving back that way.
Well, no, but it's the same situation, right? So if they're parking here and they're gonna go over to work in Domino's, they're gonna be walking along the road here.
Right.
Somebody's zipping around to get out of their You know, they've had a long day at Tunks and they wanna get home quick, they're zipping out of there, walking along that same road, and that's,
Speed bumps?
speed bump, well. they
5
didn't-
mile an hour sign?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can come up with
Has to be
something.
some kind of solution, right?
yep.
Yep.
I mean, the only reason I'm jumping in is because of this one issue. I want to stay focused on it. If there is any way on both sides, you've probably already taken a look at it, but it has been so long I don't remember, that you can have some sort of a sidewalk that has some sort of a barrier. If you can do that, that would be a magic wand, great. And I'm sure you've already looked at it.
It's too, it's too
Just not
tight.
enough room, yeah.
Really, it's tight, yeah.
So in that case, the mirrors, the speed bumps, whatever it is you can do to think of that would make that as safe as possible.
I'll talk to the fire department to make sure they're okay with, you know, some sort of traffic calming over there, speed bumps or whatever, mirrors or whatever, so.
They're big on that public safety stuff.
And also, I assume that we have a light,
Photometric?
Yeah, photometric schedule.
We do.
Okay, but and this will all be amply lit back there in every spot, I assume.
For public safety reasons, absolutely.
But not just the spots themselves, everywhere where people are likely to walk, because, you know, people are gonna go the quickest way possible to work, and if that's going through the building, great, but if it's not,
We can spend a little bit of time at the next meeting to go through the photometric plan, but we do have one, and it consists of wall packs essentially, against the building.
And the wall packs, I'm assuming will be shielded, so.
Yes, and we chose, you might remember,
I
that we,
vaguely do.
we're not using, LED.
You're right. No,
Right,
I
do you
do
remember?
that.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so we provided, I think it's maybe a high-pressure sodium lamp, but the photometric plan is in the plan set, and we can certainly talk about it again next.
And
at the
you
next
have
meeting.
you have the catalog cuts on the plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
that's everything, that's the only thing I had.
Okay, Harry,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue.
before you make the
Oh,
motion,
sorry.
I have a few
Oh, I'm
comments.
sorry.
Let's see, these are just when I was driving in tonight, and whether you have these on the notes from the past, the existing light pole, the towns with the three.
The three-way, right?
There's some of the existing trees that are out there in those islands, or one of them I think is pretty close to being dead. The same idea for the functioning of the porous pavement, you know, the top of that system, gonna wanna be looking to make sure that that system is gonna be looking, the top of that system is gonna be looking how it looks today for a long period of time, and however you wanna word the words on the plans, that's up to you, but they need to have teeth. And if not, then we'll word it. On the dumpster, the things that I'm interested in are, I wanna make sure that the locking mechanisms or the hinges are all structurally appropriate, so that over a period of 15 years, there's no sagging in the gates, you know, that they're structurally compatible with that kind of use. And then how you screen it, I don't really have strong feelings. I'm sure it looks fine, however you're gonna screen that thing. Just curious, when you talked about that depression, what's the difference between that depression that you've added and a rain garden? Is it that the percolation going down, there is none?
So there will be some, but if you recall, our biggest challenge on this site is that the groundwater, excavated seasonal high groundwater is about 24 inches below the surface. And so
Right.
those are the kinds of stormwater components that we would have selected for the site, underground infiltration chambers, but it's just not physically possible. So if you think of a rain garden, it has quite a bit of stuff under the ground surface, and there's just not enough separation to have it be considered a
I was just
rain
curious.
garden. It'll do something just to kind of slow things down maybe a little bit, and maybe trap some of the solids, let's say in a small snow pile, that sort of thing.
I'm assuming Conservation Commission, with these plants that you've added, that because of the water table, they're all wetland-related plant species, native, that kind.
Yeah, that one of the things we did during this process, we
Oh, you
changed
did
some
it?
of the species,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Fact plus.
to reflect
That
that.
was all I wanted to
Okay.
talk about. So, with that, looking for the motion, Harry.
Mr. Chairman, after.
Yeah, I just
planner
wanna,
has his
I just wanna
comments.
preface everything happening with the October 11th meeting. We have the road coming back all ready for that
This is
meeting.
the 11th.
Yes, 198 East Main Street, it's scheduled to come back on the 11th. And then Bailey Lane. So we have,
Big one.
What about the 25th? What's the 25th looking like?
the 25th is a better meeting, schedule-wise.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing to October 25th, 2017 at 7:08 PM.
Mr. Chairman,
Second for the purpose of hearing from council.
So what was the date? October what?
October 25th,
25th.
2017.
And it was second?
Second for discussion, yeah.
Okay, so motion has been made and it's been seconded to continue the public hearing to October 25th, 2017. Any discussion with that? I'm gonna take the liberty to.
Please.
thank you. I understand the scheduling issues you have there. Our concern is we're trying to complete this so we can get to undertake the work before winter conditions set in. And every single day counts, and if the board would even consider adding us to the 11th, the meeting on the 11th, and we're willing to get here earlier or stay later. I know you're a volunteer board. It's just, our concern is that, and it's no fault of anyone's here, it's just because of circumstances. We've been in this process for about, let's say maybe 15 months. And so, if there's any way the board could consider adding us to the 11th.
I'm just speaking for myself. I'm willing to, this has been going on for so long. It's a business. I wanna get it going. I'm willing to make it an extra long night. That's just me.
Do we know from Bob that he'll be back? Because
As far as I'm aware.
No, he's supposed to be back for the 11th.
Yeah,
I mean, we could do it.
yeah, but
You
I.
guys are ready for a long one?
It's, we.
Why not?
Oh, Domino's is open, cut it
As
out.
long as,
Get real.
Yeah, they're
Get
already
real.
in business, you're all right.
Hear this
You're not
all the
gonna hold up
time.
any business.
We
Well,
always hear this.
I'm,
Continue, and why is it taking you so long?
well, I mean, there is a construction schedule, and, it is money, and, if it means the board has to, have one extra meeting that night, for myself, I'm very willing to do that. But it's not just me. If the board does not wanna do that, say so.
I mean, the only other issue if I can bring up, Mr. Chairman, it's next week that, we're, gotta get everything in so I can get the,
My
the
concern
staff
is that,
reports out.
my concern is, another way to look at it is is the 25th gives you time to get everything done, and if you can come, and I'm only speaking for myself, but if you can come with a letter from the technical review agent that basically is saying he's fine, then it's just up to the board members with their own little whatevers to resolve that night on the 25th. I think if you can do that on the 11th, you're gonna have a hard time, but if you can do it on the 11th, great. But I'm just afraid you're not gonna get all that done by the 11th.
Right.
But
I guess, and I appreciate your considering it. It's, I guess the only question I would have is if we could attempt to try to do something on the 11th, and if for some reason we don't pull everything together, then we just simply continue to the 25th.
I have no problem with that. That's just me. So how does the board feel?
do we normally, John, could you have a draft decision for us for the 11th?
Yeah, I mean, I actually,
You have one.
thinking
Yeah.
a long time ago, when you were here last, we had one drafted. I'm just thinking, can you guys pull everything off by next Tuesday? Actually, even Tuesday or Monday. Taking into consideration it's already Wednesday, 'cause I have to get everything out the door
Right, so,
next week for a packet.
right, so I mean, your packets go out when, John?
They go out Thursday.
Right, so, if we were to get you the materials all packaged up nicely, one for each of the members, all, bound up, ready to go, on Wednesday, Is that enough time for you to just add it to their packets, or?
When is Larry seeing this?
What's that?
When is Larry
It's
reviewing this?
BSC.
When is BSC gonna review this?
Well,
Well, they've completed their review.
that's right, and he's been part of the,
Right, he
the-
was the one that originally came in from your team,
So,
no, from BSC Group.
from BSC.
Dominic Rinaldi's also been copied on the proceedings at the Concom because his coworker was the consultant reviewing the wetland components.
so the punchline to BSC though right now is that it needs to be some document in writing from them.
Right.
That says and references the drawings with the date.
Right.
That they've looked at them and that thumbs up.
I understand, and
I know-
the reason why I feel confident about that is only because Dominic has been
He's been on a lot.
following this through the Concom process, so.
And if it'll facilitate things, if the board's willing to allow us to have the direct contact with BSC, I'd be happy to do that to try to facilitate.
Do you have any problem with that,
No.
John? Does the board have any problem with that?
I stand by my motion.
Yeah, I kind
Let
of,
it die. If it's gonna die, call him the question.
I don't want it
Well,
rushed.
well,
I
we're
don't
just
want it
we're
rushed.
just in discussion.
I just don't want it rushed. We're getting right down to the wire and finishing it. I want it
Better
all.
dispense with the
I don't
motion.
want you to come back after
So I'm
October
hearing,
the 25th.
so I'm hearing two no's, Matt.
I would go with, I would err on the side of giving them the opportunity to come in on the 11th.
I would give him the opportunity on the 11th, but two no's and two yeses, doesn't cut it.
Doesn't
So that's an informal, I'm sorry. So with that, any more discussion on the original motion? Seeing no more discussion on the original motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 4 yes, and absent. That was 4 yes, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll be back.
All right, so, let's see. 198 East Main Street, calling for the creation of a second lot. We'll, there wasn't much action, though.
Okay.
Do you wanna take a 5-minute recess, or
Yeah, I guess.
5?
5-minute recess?
They come back and they're drastically different after Comcom gets done with them, right? I mean,
I agree. Mr. Chairman, are we
Yeah,
gonna open the,
we're back on.
would you accept a motion now for,
So,
open the,
yes, we're looking for
continuation?
198 East Main.
The continuation of 198 East Main Street, special permit, definitive subdivision.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion has been made and seconded to reopen the public hearing for 198 East Main Street, OSRD
How
definitive
come this
subdivision
is
plan,
extended?
for the sole purpose of scheduling its next public hearing.
Yeah.
What was lacking that they
looking-
weren't here?
Because the board wanted Larry Graham to review
Oh, right.
the
Okay.
drainage parts of that
Right.
common driveway. And the review has been done. Modifications to the plan are being done now. And Larry's working with Larry and trying to get everything squared away.
Okay.
They feel, they feel at this point in time we'll be ready to.
October 11th.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
October 11th, or should we?
so we're looking for a date, a motion on the public hearing date.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure.
What is on the 11th again? Give me that one more time.
Yes, we have Bailey.
Or
coming
Bailey
back,
Lane, OSRD.
And then Heather Road. is-
Heather Road,
Yeah,
a definitive subdivision.
waiving thereof. Which,
Yeah, yeah, oh, I'm familiar with it.
They're actually coming back and they've talked to their attorney and, you know, where we left that particular one was that they were going to submit a legal opinion. And then if necessary, we're gonna have our legal counsel offer up his legal opinion.
But that's Heather, so Bailey Lane,
So
Heather Road.
That's two that night on the 11th.
Yeah.
And,
Wasn't there-
and
wasn't
what do
there
we
a
have
third?
on the, I'm sorry?
Wasn't there a
I think
third?
you mentioned the
Yeah,
third,
so yeah, we have Heather, we have 198 East Main, and then we have
Oh,
Bailey.
you're
Lane,
assuming this,
Assuming,
198 East Main.
yeah.
We're assuming that. But what about, what was it, the 25th?
The
one after?
25th, it would be the second meeting for
Right.
October.
What's on that night?
So far, we have.
We have them.
Them coming
Those
back.
folks.
That, whatever's carried over from the 11th, in all likelihood, we'll just carry it over to the 25th. That say we don't finish up with Bailey, you know, we may be in a position to finish that one up the 25th. We'll have administrative stuff to deal with for the 25th, but we don't have any new applications scheduled to come in for the 25th. Parish Road is coming back next week, submitting a whole new application. And one of the actions I need of the board tonight is to extend the review period in accordance with the executed Form H to December 31st
For Parish
Parish Road. So,
But what I'm thinking is taking this 198 East Main Street, and I'm ready to make a motion to extend, to continue to October 25th. That way we have two on the 11th and two on the 25th.
What was this one again? I'm sorry, I can't recall. How
it's
many-
the shared driveway.
Yeah, you weren't here.
Oh, I think I was.
Were you?
The shared drive, so it's two houses.
Yeah, two houses, and there was another one,
Yeah.
they're gonna split the lot.
And Parish Road is coming the
This one,
11th.
this one.
Open space in the back.
Rest assured, Bailey Lane will continue after. I mean,
Again?
we'll meet on the 11th, but
Right.
But this one seems like a short one, or am I misunderstanding that? The 198.
I think it's.
Some short ones seem so long, and some long ones seem so short.
You know what, there is a likelihood that Larry Ogden may have to ask for an extension because the review from Larry Graham
right.
is causing a little bit more modification of the plan, of which it requires Larry to seek an agreement with the other common party.
This is his drainage review.
Did we get the copy of
Okay.
those comments from Larry?
I'm with you.
Do you think we should get that to look at it?
Well, that's,
Or
all
him?
it was tonight was the continuation. They're still working out the technical reviews that may end up doing another somewhat minor revision to the existing plans that have been submitted to Larry. And then, because of the modifications of the driveway that's been prescribed by Larry Graham, Larry Ogden has to ask the abutter, you know, if he's
Right, there is
copacetic
another
with
one.
the
Right.
revisions. It's gonna make the driveway better, it's going to drain better, it's not gonna end up.
Glad we had Larry take a look at that.
Yeah.
So,
Good
any
move.
more discussion on that motion?
The motion that
Oh, you didn't
I
make it
made,
yet.
I
did
didn't
you?
make it yet, I was just sort of throwing
You
it out there,
started
so
to,
we didn't
okay,
have to
so
go
go,
through it.
so would you
I'm
kindly
gonna-
make a
I'm-
motion?
Absolutely. I move to continue the public hearing for 198 East Main Street, OSRD subdivision, to October 25th at 7:12 PM.
7:08, you wanna do
Right, he's
7:45?
first. He's first. 4 minutes later, we do this one.
All right. Okay. Second.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to continue the public hearing for 198 East Main Street OSRD subdivision to October 25th, 2017. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 4 yes, 1 absent. And now we move on to the fourth and last public hearing, which is Bailey Lane. And due to having only 4 members, the applicant has requested the hearing to be continued to the October 11th date. So unless I've got that wrong, John, I'm just looking for a motion.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Move to continue the public hearing for the Bailey Lane OSRD definitive subdivision plan.
Sorry, we gotta reopen it
Sorry,
first.
my
That's all right.
apologies. Move to reopen the public hearing for the OSRD definitive subdivision plan application for Bailey Lane, map D, parcel 6A-1.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to reopen the public hearing for the OSRD definitive subdivision plan application for Bailey Lane, map D, parcel 6-1 for sole purpose of scheduling public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And I now move to continue the public hearing for Bailey Lane, Village OSRD definitive subdivision plan to October 11th, 2017, planning board meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to continue the public hearing for Bailey Lane to October 11th, 2017. Any discussion? No discussion?
What time?
7:09.
All right. So it's the second one then, right? We're setting the sequence.
Any more
We're
discussion?
setting the sequence. We are.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4 yes, 1, 1 missing. So planning office is the last item.
To me.
Open space.
Yes.
8:30.
Man, finally.
John?
Yes,
Wanna
take a
crack at it?
Yeah, before we can go into that,
Sure.
a couple of items.
Planning office item.
One being if I could get a motion to grant the extension for review of 66 Parish Road through December 31st, 2017. This is 66 Parish Road. It's the OSRD.
And this is to what
They,
extent?
they haven't withdrawn yet?
No, they've been reviewing that plan with Conservation Commission, and they decided they're gonna try to go a different route. And it's a new submission that we'll be dealing with technically, because it's a condominium proposal, 11 dwelling units on 1 lot. So it'd be a private development, and they're staying completely out of the wetlands, so there's possibly no wetland jurisdiction involved with the plan.
When was the last continuation?
In the spring, and then accordingly, as this application went along, we kept on continuing it.
And so the next continuation is?
The next continuation, because the present extension was through September 30th. So we need to extend it through December 31st. And they've executed the Form H accordingly. So what we need is a motion tonight. This is just to keep us in a safe environment, time-wise.
I'm just curious when the continuation, I don't remember continuing it. What is do we know what the continuation date is? I'm not putting you on the spot, John, I'm not
Yeah,
trying to
no,
do that.
no.
It's at some point, and I'm just wondering if it did not actually get continued and inadvertently got closed.
No, it was never closed. It was continued, and they have an executed Form H through September 30th.
Okay.
I think we continued this one.
We basically tabled it until we heard back from them.
I don't think we can do that.
I think we did do that.
I don't think you can. You have to continue to a date and time certain. And if you did not do that, by default, you closed. Just my take on it. you can ask town council and stuff like that, but
So can we sign the Form H for the, and set them down for the first hearing in November and say, show up and tell us where you're at?
what if you were in a butter?
John, I have a question about the timeframe for going to the Concom. I understood it started in April, but now this is going to December? I mean, they're gonna start off with a new plan?
If I remember correctly, they were working with Conservation Commission, I believe up until the beginning of July. And then they were trying to figure out how they could possibly move forward with an OSRD on the property. And that's when they applied with Les Godden relative to determining what would be the permits needed to do a private roadway and a condominium type of single-family development. And that request with Les took quite a while to determine, and Les worked with town council on that. So they've now had to redesign the project, and I did talk to the attorney that represents the applicant today, and they are planning to submit a new filing next week.
I'm drawing a lot of blanks on the history of this, but, the last time we saw them, did we continue their hearing? Matt thinks we continued it in general, but.
Yeah, we continued it relative to them working with Conservation Commission, and once they finalized with Concom, they were gonna come back to us. And they didn't want to have to revise the plans any further until they were done with Conservation Commission. They've decided that, in order to move forward with the potential development of that site, they would have to forego any wetland impacts. So we're dealing with a completely new project. If you just bear with me for a moment. I don't want this board to get into a position where there's some technicality having to do with the review period. And if it's not extended tonight to beyond September 30th, there may potentially be grounds for them to go to court.
So that's clear.
Yeah.
That point's clear.
Absolutely. I think we should
And we should respond on that.
vote on that,
Correct.
but then also set them down for public hearing on November the first meeting in November, and say, come in and tell us where you're standing.
That's what they anticipate.
Great.
We're not going to have a public hearing until November. And the earliest we would have is that first meeting, which is the second Wednesday. I don't know if this board traditionally meets Thanksgiving week. I would imagine not.
No.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit, I'm confused because okay, tonight, we have a request from the applicant
Yeah.
to extend the time for decision. I'm good with that.
Yep.
Somebody wants to make that motion, I'll second it. My question is.
Let's do that and get
Okay,
that off-
let's do
let's
that,
do that
absolutely.
and get that one
Mr.
off
Chairman,
the-
I will make a motion to, accept the, extension, Form H extension from the applicant for, and this is the OSRD at 66 Parish Road.
Yes. Mhm.
To December 3rd.
Extend it out to December 31st, 2017.
Second.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to extend the decision date and sign the Form H of 66 Parish Road to December 31st, 2017. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
4 yes.
I'm sorry.
1 absent, and then we need to sign something, right?
Right.
Was
Yes.
this the one where we,
Well, no, you don't need to
We don't
sign
need
it.
to sign
It's
it.
just the
Oh, I'm sorry.
documentation that you made the motion
Okay.
and it passed.
Absolutely.
So that holds true for
I don't
continuation
remember-
for
I'm
the
not-
special
I'm drawing
permit?
blanks.
we
Yes.
invited them to withdraw without
Does
prejudice?
it say that?
Yes.
Was this the one
Yeah.
that we?
Well, can I ask a question, John? I mean,
Should
would
we
it,
pull up the meeting?
yeah, the minutes are online, right? Can we pull them up? I can't open a doc file on my phone. I can't do that, I'm sorry, I can't. My phone won't open a doc file. But, I think what we really ought to do is sit back and at some point, we'll pull the minutes from that meeting and see when the hearing was continued to, because it sure sounds like we're in a hearing.
Yeah, you know,
We're in a
what-
special permit
what-
hearing.
All we did tonight was protect this board relative to that previous
Decision.
application.
Right.
What will take place is that they're going to be submitting a new application. We're gonna handle it as a new application. Prior to handling and opening up the new public hearing, we're going to get from them a written withdrawal of the previous application.
Okay, so there
So
will
we
be
can
a
null and
butter
void-
notice.
Yeah, we will null and void the previous application.
Gotcha.
And we will be starting from scratch.
I think we invited them to do this and that we would waive the application fee. This is,
Right. Now.
because they changed so dramatically from what they originally came in with what the new plan was, yeah.
Yeah, and if it will go out to peer review, I would imagine, and, you know, that's what they'll have to pay for, but they, you know, and pay for the advertising costs, but,
And a butter notification
yeah,
once
but
again.
the actual application fee, which is substantial,
Yeah,
waived.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that'll protect it.
Okay, so back to, you said there were two things on the, in addition?
Yes, one of the items that's, new to the board is, the Affordable Housing Trust recently finished, their housing production plan.
Cool.
And I wanted to hand copies out of this tonight, and they would like to come in at the board's next meeting, October 11th, and give a presentation on this. The technical aspect of it is that
Thank you.
in accordance with state statute, the board has to approve this, and then it will move on to state approval. So they're gonna come in next meeting and give a presentation.
Do you know how long?
Right now, they said about a half hour.
Maybe November would be better for this. We'd be able to focus more on all the salient points. We'll have time to read through it and really digest it. Just a suggestion. You know, those are gonna be busy nights. We're gonna have a lot of, two special permits one night in October.
Well, that's why it was good.
Maybe November.
That's really why it was good that we put those two meetings off to the 25th.
Do we, are they on any kind of schedule that we need to
They
be
are.
aware of?
They are, but you know what, I can call
Cause I
them up.
like Harry's comment.
Yeah.
I agree.
Give us more time to.
Yeah, November would be good.
Yeah, you know what, I'll call up, I've been in contact with Paul Nelson, I'll go over with him tomorrow, you know, what type of time frame they're under.
Okay. Okay, and wasn't there, did you have anything else?
Let's see.
You don't have to go looking for me.
In accordance, you know, in accordance with Harry's email in regard to this Executive Office of
That's
Energy.
what I was gonna mention.
Yeah, I did print out the grant. This was fresh off the press this week. Rather tight deadline.
For the sidewalk fix?
Now, is this the one you mentioned, Harry, or is this the one?
No,
Kirk
this-
Gardner, technical
that you
assistance,
sent.
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And then that was a follow-up memo that I sent out.
Was yours the same, talking about the same grant?
Same grant,
one.
different
Got it.
purpose.
Got it, okay, yep.
And then the Economic Development Committee last night, they were given copies of this also.
What do we need to do? This is great.
Right.
Yeah.
I did get a hold of Karen Conrad, the director of Merrimack Valley, to ask them if they were doing anything on a regional scale that could involve Georgetown. Presently, the Regional Planning Agency is thinking about putting together a master plan type of study for sidewalks concerning the communities within Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. Putting a total assessment together. And that's part of that Complete Streets program. Did everybody get a chance to read that quick email I sent out? We are now, you know, officially a Complete Streets program community, and
Yeah.
we actually have a project submitted for this funding round.
So you-
I have that information too, available tonight.
That's under
Oh,
complete
I'd
streets,
like to-
not under this grant, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct, yeah. This one has, you know, many elements to it that we could apply for.
Yeah,
It's time to do it.
When I initially sent it to you,
October
I looked
23rd.
at it.
Well, we do have time. It's, you know, I'll tell you, that Complete Streets program came together in a 3-week period of time. We went
Wow.
from getting the policy accepted and voted on and graded, 96. Within the following week, we got the prioritization plan submitted. And the following week from that, we got it accepted. And then,
That was really good work.
oh, it was unbelievable. You know, a local engineer working with Pete Durkee, Mike Myers. He has his own engineering firm and he lives in town. And, you know, he really helped out a lot.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened otherwise. We would have been into the April
Wow.
timeframe. And, you know, the earlier you get in the door, the better. We're still in the top 50 percentile of becoming a Complete Streets program community compared to the 351 communities in
Hitting the mark.
Massachusetts, so, you know,
Oh, that's great.
it really is. I mean, it's astounding that it
Yeah.
happened so quickly, cause it
Right.
wasn't going to, just a month ago. And it all came together. And what I wanna say is that Mass DOT with their portal, you know, everything is really smooth. It's almost seamless how well everything moved along and got graded and was accepted, so, Mass DOT really does have, the program,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
well managed.
Merrimack Valley does too.
Yes,
With,
oh,
with
yeah.
them, yeah.
I met with them last week in the commissioners' meeting that started up. It was the first commissioners' meeting since the recess of the summer. And we had gentleman Larry Fields in, who works, is the assistant executive director of Smart Growth. And he went over with all the commissioners the numerous state statutes that are being proposed this year concerning zoning and planning and subdivision. There's really
Wow.
an amazing amount of pieces of legislation that are being entertained this year.
Well, I hope they get further along than, I've heard this for a long time.
We've only been trying it 20 years, Tilly. Keep trying.
You know, I'll get everybody a copy of the legislation.
Maybe now that
It's
we have
pretty
a
interesting
Merrimack Valley, a woman in charge, maybe she'll get the ball going.
Yeah.
I hope.
Oh, she's
'Cause we need
tremendous.
some-
Karen.
yeah, Karen.
Yes, very, very
That's
talented.
great.
So what do we need to do about this?
I'm working with,
What would you like us to do?
well, you know, we'd have to move forward rather quickly if we're going to apply for this grant funding as a community and to figure out, Harry has a great idea for it. And
So go
it's
for it.
probably, I'd say it's,
Well,
and
John also has a
realistically.
great idea, too.
No, no,
Go for that one too?
yeah, but realistically, your idea is much more feasible. The idea of trying to move forward in a coherent manner with the sewer treatment facility, that's a much more comprehensive.
That's a big.
That's John's idea, is to move forward with the package treatment. My idea was a little less grandiose, just the Cornell numbers, changing the Cornell numbers when we do our stormwater calculations for subdivisions and for stormwater. Go to the Cornell numbers, like many, many communities are changing over to. And
They're already
we
outdated.
need, well.
I don't think you need to do a grant for that, I mean.
Well, the grant would allow for
somebody
assistance
to
to
do
do
it,
it,
right.
yes, to get a little bit of the load off of John, put it on the regional planning agency. I'm sure it would be a modest grant.
I mean, I think the septic idea though is if I had a magic wand, that would happen first. If I had a magic wand, but it's a much bigger animal, but it's
It's
so.
a big animal.
It's a big animal, but that is, if that were to ever happen, it could open up a whole world of opportunity for the town, but.
Just on that note, Mr. Chairman, if you had a chance to watch the Board of Selectmen meeting that took place Monday night, they did meet with Mass Works and Mass Development. And then at the Economic Development Committee meeting we had last night in this building with two of the selectmen and members of that committee. You know, we had a long discussion about that particular subject matter, and the need is to actually focus in on that issue and determine, you know, at this point, do we want to tackle it and move forward? Because it's gonna take a lot of energy and a lot of focus, and a lot of time, and, right, but you know, there are financial avenues to do it. You know, and then, you know, how big of a scope are we going to incorporate? The downtown and surrounding neighborhoods, or just the downtown, with somewhat of a boutique type of, sewer treatment or septic system that, you know, could be part of just a large septic system with an extra large leaching area, you know, finding the correct parcel that would work for that. And just to increase the septic capacity of downtown so that we could, as a community, have more restaurant
Correct.
down there. Introduce, you know, an increase in the amount of housing, you know, just to have that capacity down there, so that the downtown area of Georgetown becomes more sustainable, more viable, more vibrant, you know.
So is who's making the decision to move that forward, or is a decision being made to move that forward? Because it's important.
Yes, with the Economic Development Committee last night,
They're sort of picking that ball
yeah,
up?
the Board of Selectmen that were there, they're going to now start focusing in
Right.
on working with Mass Development and Mass Works, and, you know, work towards getting an RFI,
Great,
request for information.
okay.
So, and then we also
All right.
talked about, if I could, we also talked about the 26 acre parcel over in National Ave, and
Yep.
the appraisal for that, that the Board of Selectmen commissioned, you know, is due fairly soon. So-
What is the plan with that, John? Are they gonna sell it, or?
No, it
develop
hasn't come
it,
to a
or-
conclusion, but that was part of the Mass Works, Mass Development meeting with the Board of Selectmen.
Uh-huh.
You know, the whole idea is to develop a plan for the highest and best use
Uh-huh.
of the property. You know, taking into consideration, there's a couple of issues with it.
There's a serious issue
There's
which
some
they have not
wetland
addressed
consideration.
yet. It
Well, they're
sounded
gonna
like,
try to, you know, and I mean,
Despite-
I'm not saying anything isn't known, it's just, you know, just
Despite
gaining access
frontage
to the
things.
property
It's in this.
off of the right of way, or
That's-
onto the right of way.
That's easily resolved. Easily resolved.
Okay, so bringing it back to here,
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in here, excuse me, that said anything connected to the Cornell numbers.
I was
I
pulling,
saw your email, but
yeah,
whereabouts does it fit into this?
I was seeing, if you look at page 4,
Yeah, I am.
under tasks suitable for funding under the RFR, include but not limited to, and under actions, it's the
Oh,
the fourth hyphen, mitigation of climate change through zoning and other regulations that reduce energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, via a better mix of land uses, more compact growth, enhanced, no, excuse me, I'm sorry, that was not the one.
I was gonna say,
I'm on the wrong
no, I
one.
can see it fitting
No,
in
no,
there.
I'm on the wrong one, I'm on the wrong one there, where was it? Oh, God, I lost it,
But
nope, I missed it.
I collected several
Never mind.
communities that are using the Cornell numbers, and, you know, I just took copies off the computer. And it didn't seem like it was that involved. I think probably our technical expert consultant there, who lives in Ipswich, I
Larry
think
Graham?
Ipswich was an example. If we could probably get, you know, ask him for any input, if we needed anything else. But I mean, I didn't think it would be, almost, you know, if we're gonna get a grant, we wanna use it for something that is not so easily available to us.
I only suggested it because I know that one of the things that we identified as something that the board wanted to do was add the Cornell numbers and work with
We've
our
already
regulations.
agreed to that many, many times, so it's
And-
nothing new.
I think what I like about having a grant do it is that, we have talked about it for so long and no one just seems to have the time and whatever the reasons are, if we can pick off one thing, and if it were a grant that took care of it and we got the Cornell numbers, great. Success, win.
I mean, and
But,
what we may, this is why I got a hold of Merrimack Valley. You know, if they're going to do a substantial application that's going to include something important for the communities within the region, you know, to make sure that we team up with them, for one thing. If the town decides that, you know, we want to go after any of these potential grant application qualifications, then, you know, we can do that too. But I just wanna make sure that we're part and parcel to anything Merrimack Valley might be doing for other communities, that we can piggyback on them, because they are gonna go after an grant application.
And they're aiming for,
They're aiming for, as I said earlier, they're thinking about doing comprehensive analysis of the sidewalk network within the region. And see, with their Complete Streets program, the way it's working, communities, in order to get or be eligible for state and federal funding for highway improvement projects, are eventually going to have to all be Complete Streets program communities. And a major component of that is creating more sidewalks, you know, making sure the right-of-ways within a community are accommodating for all modes of travel, bike, ped, cars. You know, that's what it's all about.
keep that in mind on Heather Lane. Anyway,
Wherever floats your boat.
at any rate, however we move forward with it, through a grant or through whatever, maybe we can just put it on the to-do list for regulatory changes.
With community preservation funding, you know, if you guys are doing anything that would fit the tab of applying for one of these grants, that, you know.
I'm not following, I'm sorry, John. How does,
No, if you see in this list anything that could help the future of community preservation that you need a study for, the community needs a study for, that, you know, may tie into that, the implementation of it.
I understand what you're saying. I'll forward it to the board and let them know.
This
Right
is
now,
a-
I can
this
tell
is
you,
a
just
continuum.
as a segue to that, community preservation, I guess I should give just a quick update. The project suggestion period is open, and you go to georgetowncpc.com, and anyway, you can download a project suggestion. Anybody that wants to suggest any kind of project, it's open. Just send it off to, you can reply to the emails there and send it through the email, or you can just put it in and mail it to the town hall, and it'll go in our box, and
Well, I
we're
could tell
accepting the
you-
applications
yeah.
until November 30th.
Well, it says 23rd.
No, well, I'm talking about, I'm sorry, Tilly, I drifted off the subject, my
Okay.
fault, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going on to something else.
I've heard some, you know, I've been on the Economic Development Committee, and I understand the problems are downtown. And I think that to start that wastewater treatment plant, just to do a feasibility study, to see what it would cost, because when we worked on it before for the 40R, the people were most concerned about that, because we didn't have those numbers. And if we could get the numbers to say, is this gonna be worthwhile for advancement of, you know, like you mentioned, restaurants? Is that gonna pay for itself, so that the community won't have to increase their taxes throughout town, just for downtown? That seemed to be the hitch.
Yeah.
And if they could do some kind of a cost-effective study, you know, to give us direction.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been an old issue.
Well, that-
Yeah.
That would be this grant item right here, feasibility studies and use analysis and other plans necessary for successful redevelopment of sites and buildings.
That's the main thing, is if will they be able to do that detail of getting numbers? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
So, so we should, I'd like to try to wrap this up, if possible. And I'm not sure where we are with it.
October 23rd is, I think we better come up with something quick.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
How
I
does-
would, I would suggest, you know, if I can work with Mike on this and, you know, try to get something together, get possibly the support of the Board of Selectmen. I mean, it's not something that we as a group are gonna be able to tackle unless we, want to break in and create an ad hoc committee of the planning board. And start working on this right away and, you know, present whatever
Right.
we want to do to the Board of Selectmen for their support.
Yeah.
I support that. I don't have any extra time.
I think it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. I think we should just do what we think should be done and then tell them that we've done it.
It's so libertarian.
Well, they mentioned too, that property in that area of National Ave. And this suggestion from the state, I believe she was from, she mentioned having a box store business in that area, National Ave. Now, if you look through the books, you'll see we tried that, and people did not go for that at all.
With Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, that was forget that. They don't want, I remember the traffic was the big thing. They didn't want that. They wanted to keep this community a bedside community, and they didn't want that, you know, so maybe, you know,
Well,
the
this is-
feelings are different, I
Well,
don't
this
know.
is one of the discussions we had last night, the economic development. I mean, exit 53, both east and west sides, is probably one of the least developed intersections
Yeah.
along a major corridor in the Commonwealth, you know, so close to urban core centers. You know, it wouldn't take that much of someone's vision, you know, a major league developer to accumulate all of that property if they saw the vision of it. And, you know, start looking at the potential of that, you know, mixed use development that has housing, that has the retail element, that has that village development component with it. You know, that's what the development community is doing these days. They're looking at where can they locate the new hottest place to live and work and enjoy your life. So they're creating these village type of developments, preferably immediately off highways, preferably with mass transit capacity. Obviously, that doesn't immediately have that, but you know, you drive down through Raleigh and there's a train station there. You know, it has a lot of commuter viability to it. I brought out to the Economic Development Committee last night, that 40B complex over there is absolutely full. You know, there is a need for that type of development, but you know, the problem is that what the community wants? Does the community want to grow like that and all of a sudden become, you know, discovered?
There's also industrial development potential down there. It is our industrial area. We have it zoned for that, and I mean, it is
You know what's
very convenient.
Harry, you know what's happening? Again, I try to do as much traveling and observation, you know, and this is what's happening along the 128 belt. You probably see it in Burlington, it's happening in Woburn, all up and down 128. These industrial sites, they're being transformed into multi-family, multi-high-rise developments. Yes, they have sewer and water capacity to handle that, but they're taking down retail establishments and transforming them into residential everywhere, and offices nearby. You know, they're mixing things up, and they're adapting their zoning to allow for that to happen. You know, the days of, you know, putting these freestanding industrial complexes up and, you know, and then having people drive to and from, that's not what's happening.
it's over.
I mean, they're putting housing, massive multifamily housing in what, you know, 10 years ago was underutilized brownfields, you know, sites that didn't have a future. I was at an economic development meeting this morning in Peabody, and all of the planners and economic development people were there, and you know, Winthrop, Peabody, Danvers, and every one of them to a person was explaining how much growth is going on in their communities, how much revitalization is taking place in housing, commercial development, mixed use, new restaurants, and everything else. And when it was my turn to talk, I said, you know what, I see this all happening, and we are in a golden period of time right now for all that economic expansion. There's so much money to be lent out there. There's so much free financing going on. You know, Massachusetts is going through this total renaissance of a great period of economic development, where all these communities and a lot of the people at the table are so young, they don't realize what can happen on a dime. And, you know, the party could be over. And what I was expressing to them is that in these growing economies, that's when you want to accept and be nimble about what the market will bring you, and to expand your tax base, to create those jobs. And you know, those are the opportunities, economic expansion opportunities, that get you through those bad times a lot better.
The issue there that I think we've missed that train. I don't think, you know, I'm not an economist, but these good times that Massachusetts is going through right now, you know, it has a cap on it at some point coming up, and I don't think it's that far down the road.
Well,
and
as soon as the interest rates have to go up,
So-
and nobody knows when that is,
But can't so I mean this what we're talking about is very complicated. It's there's a lot to it. Can't we take this, and isn't money to hire someone to figure this out for us?
This is
Is
what
it-
the grant is gonna do.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But we gotta pick something that we're applying for the grant for, right? I mean,
Feasibility
and
studies.
we have to basically
land
do that tonight.
Land
if
use
we're gonna-
analysis and other plans necessary for successful redevelopment of sites and buildings.
That covers a lot.
Can we write it vaguely that, you know?
you know,
I'm
as I
happy leaving
said,
it in John's
you know,
hands. I'm happy leaving it in John's hands. It sounds like he has it
I'm
under
happy
control.
leaving it in John's hands too, but either way, I want to.
Well,
Well, the
John, but I mean,
economic
John, do you have
development.
time to, I mean, could you take this project and run with it and make sure that it's submitted by October 23rd? Do you have,
that is the goal.
so if we voted tonight to give you the authority to, you know, take the steps necessary to get between now and October 23rd to submit this, is that what you need from us?
And we are working already on it through the Economic Development Committee. Last night, two of the selectmen, Steve and Joe Bonavita, they're already on board and already working towards this. And that's also working with Mass Development and Mass Works. Have you gone on their websites?
I'm sorry, is that, what do you need from us tonight, I guess, is what I'm trying to figure out. Do you need a motion? Do you need
Assent.
a
I think assent.
Yeah,
I'm
it's sent
just
that we,
concerned that
we
everything is
want.
gonna land on your lap.
Well, no, it isn't.
Already
No,
there.
this,
It's already there, Tony.
It's gonna take a lot of
no,
time.
no, no, this just happens. I mean, you gotta
Yeah.
act fast, and you gotta work with the right people.
Absolutely.
You know, that's why I've been
So,
in touch with.
Do you need something specific from the
Well,
board tonight?
how
or
about this?
do you want to, as Harry said, you know, you make the decision and the
Okay.
board is gonna support your decision in taking advantage of this? Do you prefer something specific or something general from us? What helps you the
No,
most?
if I can just talk for 1 minute. I know we don't wanna be here all night, but as I explained to the Economic Development Committee, the long-standing elusive goal of this community that's absolutely necessary to achieve, to create a more viable downtown environment for both residential expansion purposes and for their retail, commercial expansion potential.
septic.
Is septic.
Correct.
Okay, if you want a more viable, more attractive, more energized, vital community downtown setting, that's what's killing it right now. It's what's strangling it. They don't have the sewer treatment capacity. So that particular issue is one of those most important planning and development issues for this community to achieve.
Everyone's in agreement with that.
Okay, so what we did last night with the economic development people was to, and as I said to them, we have to focus in on that issue or it'll never get done. Okay, so there has to be energy, there has to be a group of people working on it and committed to making.
That issue.
Yeah, and eventually to bring it to the voters as it has been brought to the voters 2, 3, 4 times in the past. So, you know, that's what has to be. So if we're gonna do anything with this grant, that's what I would advocate to this board,
Got
to
my
let me
support.
go
It's
with
got my
this.
support 100%.
Hope it shows me where they're gonna pump it to.
Well, no,
That's what I'd like to see.
Let's put
Great,
those
well, we got
questions
money to
down.
find out
There you go.
where the shit's gonna
I'm
go.
only
Yeah,
concerned about the
but-
cost.
But now, it's not really a matter that it may have to be a full-scale sewer treatment
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
facility. It could be a boutique
that-
type of operation, Littleton.
Better.
Right.
I think what the board needs to do is, what I'm hearing from the board is everybody is in favor of authorizing you, supporting you in this grant and working with your other committee members and your other groups to pursue this issue of septic downtown.
Yeah.
Great.
Everybody there?
Dying to see it.
All right. Would you just say yeah?
Oh, absolutely, I'm excited about it.
All right,
Okay.
all right.
Wanna see
So
the
that's
proposal.
great. All right, I'm glad you guys brought this up.
What about the Cornell numbers? Are we dead on that? Is that DOA?
No, I think Tilly's comment about the Cornell numbers are something that's not that we can
We
do.
can do that in-house?
But it's just one of those things, it's,
I move to
Christmas
make,
list? Or-
a subcommittee on the
That's a good
Cornell
idea.
numbers.
And Harry's
consisting
heads
of
it up.
Harry and Tilly.
For the Cornell numbers?
Would you like to do that?
do you want to?
I'll second that.
Do you want to do that?
I'll
All right,
second that.
motion's been made and it's been seconded, for Harry, and Tilly to tackle the Cornell numbers.
Oh, wonderful.
Any discussion? You were volunteered.
I guess so.
Do you want to discuss it?
No, I've said everything.
You're into it?
I would like to get it going.
All right.
Perfect. So we have
All
a
in favor?
subcommittee.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Excellent. And John, don't smile. You're a part of that committee too, by default.
I don't wanna interrupt you guys. You work very well together, and you've accomplished, and that's my question that I asked you. Are you gonna debut? when you
No,
guys
no,
were-
not tonight.
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
No, I know, not tonight, but, no, I just,
He's talking
I,
about the
just
build-out
curious.
The
analysis.
build out, yeah.
We're
I-
that close.
It's getting there.
Wait for another
Almost.
better night.
I mean, you guys.
I have-
I'd rather OSRD it.
I have,
Yeah,
I have,
we're really
I have
glad
nothing
that-
left
that
in me.
Gerard is doing so
But if
much.
the board, if the
Thanks for
board
letting-
wants to continue, I will participate, but I have got nothing left, but I will stay here if the board wants to.
I have some small,
Do you?
picky little changes that I.
me too.
but they're-
I'll give it 10 minutes. I'll give it 10 minutes. You know why?
how
You
about
know why I'm
some-
saying
I
that?
don't even wanna, you take up meeting time, I would just hand these to John, I don't need to.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
That would be awesome. You wanna do it that
Right.
way?
I didn't realize we could do it that way.
Comments and
We can do it that way.
Yeah, I've had a lot.
It's,
It might not be in,
do you guys, are you comfortable doing it that way? I mean, I think what Matt's saying is his are typos and he's not changing substance.
I'm hearing that, and
I've
it's
got
been a
one
while since I looked
would
through
really
this.
like to talk about though, because we did have a problem, with, previous to an application that was appealed, and, my thought was that we should just eliminate the density bonus in that OSRD. We already have a bylaw to allow for the requirement of affordable housing in a subdivision in a special permit. And I think that's good. That should stay, and we should apply that for the OSRD. I get that out of there.
I mean, I support that too, because,
Oh, good.
you know why? Because they're gonna do an OSRD anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, the bonus for them is to have the ability to do an OSRD rather than a standard development.
True.
You know, so you don't have to incentivize, an OSRD, they're gonna do it anyway.
They
There's a
want it.
will.
Most are gonna want
That's the will and that's the way to develop property. You know, the standard subdivisions are a thing of the past, they have been for the community, the development community, so you don't need to, hey, you can have some more, because you're going this way. Well, they're going that way anyway, so you don't have to
Right.
add to the density.
I think
My two
that's
cents.
a great idea, and my only other substantive comment is that I don't see a definitions section here, and I think that might help clarify some of the language throughout the rest of it. Because there's a lot of places that right within the language, you're trying to define what the language is talking about, and I think that gets confusing, whereas if we did 165, 47A right in the beginning that says definitions, think
That's a good point, yeah.
Really help
That, I
focus
would
the
agree
rest
to
of
that.
the language. I know it's a little
Definitions
bit
are
more,
very important.
a little bit more complicated to do.
It's
but-
very important.
Are you gonna give that to
That's it.
John?
I'm gonna,
I didn't wanna
You
hold
wanna
you up.
email
I
it?
have a
Yeah,
lot more
yeah, okay.
to-
I'm gonna do the same thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
'cause
please.
I've gotta
You know,
write
please
it
do it.
again
We'll
so
keep
you can
working.
actually read it.
We'll complete it.
What I-
Can I just,
Yeah.
unless you want to.
No, what I was gonna say is that, what I struggle a little bit with on the OSRD, what we've been doing is that we have it at the end of the night, at the end of the meeting, and it's an important document, and I wished, I'd rather see it, if we're gonna, I think it's an important document, I think it deserves time early on in the agenda when people have energy.
Yeah.
But, that's just me.
How does it sound? I'll fix what I had so you can actually read it and
Yeah.
scan it.
Yeah.
And I'll send it to you. And hopefully, we can get maybe another draft out of it.
Yes.
And
And I guess would you guys be up to, if we're gonna talk about it, if we need to put it earlier in the agenda versus the end?
either put it early in the agenda or as much as.
Or have a special meeting on it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as much as my son's gonna kill me for saying that, yeah.
No, either one, I would.
there's no hurry. I mean, if we get this to John can work on, sounds like he's got some
Right,
other
I
things
mean,
to deal
If
with.
we do have
There
it
is no
ready
hurry.
for the spring, we'll have it ready for the spring. It should be our main focus to accomplish, because this is all we're going to be dealing with. This is the most important
Yeah.
ordinance in the zoning ordinance
agree.
relative to
Sure.
any additional residential development in this
I
town.
agree.
So-
You know,
I'm open to scheduling a special meeting to talk about this,
Just
guys.
in the Cornell number,
Because we're not gonna have an opportunity for an agenda coming up through the end of this year that's gonna be light, I don't believe. I think
No, they're gonna be heavy.
full.
They're gonna be heavy.
Well,
Yeah,
the other big thing about it is that I have several questions, and, the original, the OSRD that we do have, I have some questions about it without it ever being brought up during a hearing, And one of the things I've noticed from other communities is that it's the board that makes the decision of whether you do OSRD or a regular subdivision. It's not the applicant. And that has always bothered me. Why, if we're working for the town, that's our number one priority. It's not always a priority. The applicant gets to be pleased with our decision. So that's what I would like you to think about, is that we do the decision.
We cannot do that.
Could we?
That would put the town in the position, or this board in the position,
Well,
to compel an applicant who wanted to go with just a simple definitive subdivision permit and compel them to meet the higher bar of a special permit.
But that's just it.
So I think that's,
It's
I
already,
think this discussion is an important question, and I think it should be part of either
Yeah.
early on in an agenda, or I think it should be part of a special meeting, and my gut tells me we need to have a special meeting for these two items.
It's deep, it is, it's deep.
You
Yeah,
know, a couple of components of the new legislation that's being proposed, OSRDs would end up being a matter of right.
Yeah, by right.
It would only require a simple majority.
I'm sure.
Rather than super. So, yeah, I mean, it only makes sense with OSRDs that they preserve the
Oh, yeah.
environment.
No, no,
Why not allow them to be by right?
yeah.
right.
You know,
You
they-
wanna encourage them?
Right.
Yeah.
You don't wanna make, they're so good, you don't wanna make anything, a stop for them. You wanna allow them to.
I
come
think
the
in their
door.
day when they first came out, it made sense where, you had it as motivation, but now you want people to do it.
I really hope it moves into the direction nationally, and I don't wanna put this broad brush, but you know what, we gotta stop building roadways wider than they absolutely need to be. Building them any wider just adds to flooding conditions, it adds to maintenance problems, I mean, you gotta get off of this thinking that, everything has to be, a controlled, structured drainage environment, when, you know what, vast majority of the roadways for a very long period of time have been sheet flow into proper drainage channels, having properly constructed shoulders. But, you know, to actually disperse the water into the environment much better than, you know, these controlled structures do, you know, that just concentrate all this runoff and concentrate the pollutants and everything else. They're a nightmare to maintain, you know.
So can we say that is the board in agreement that the OSRD and the Cornell numbers will be put together as a special meeting that we'll schedule? Or do you wanna just say the OSRD? I don't
I'll
care.
go with the OSRD,
Okay, and you guys start.
and we'll
you
send
tell
in our
us-
comments in,
you tell
and then
us-
when Tilly and I can finally get together,
You tell us
maybe
if
we
it
can get
works,
Parker
and
River to
maybe
give us a hand,
Well,
maybe,
realistically, we're gonna do a special meeting, we either need to do that in October or January. I mean, I don't know about anybody
Yeah,
else, I don't really wanna do 3 meetings in
thinking
either
January,
November or
February.
December.
January, February. You're thinking January, February.
Yeah, January is great because that gives us the time. That's a great time to start something
All right.
and finish it
do
before
that.
the time is due for having everything ready for a town warrant. You know, and if we stay concentrated on what we want to achieve, we'll do that. You know, we gotta make sure we just don't spread ourselves too thin and get nothing done.
So it's agreed, January for the OSRD, we'll
Third
create a
meeting.
schedule, third meeting in January.
Does anybody
Okay.
want the Complete Streets project, the initial project? And this is the spreadsheet. There's a copy for everybody.
This is just a mix.
Just give you an idea of what is in store. There's pedestrian crossing improvements for East Main Street involved with this as the first project, along with reconstructing Central Street for a good length, 4,200 feet, going south on Central Street.
Central,
Yeah,
4,200 feet, down Central.
it's all described there.
What's that, past the cemetery, Harmony?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Mr.
was
Chairman, I
a little
would make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that, Mr.
Motion's been
Chairman.
made and seconded to adjourn, all in favor? Aye,
I didn't get the spreadsheet.
very good.
Um,
Oh, I'm
Oh, is there
sorry.
only one?
No, I took them all.